My name is Sebastian Stein, and I'm an associate professor in the School of Electronics and Computer Science at the University of Southampton. My research is about how we can use artificial intelligence to make better decisions in highly dynamic and complex settings. One area I'm particularly passionate about is applying artificial intelligence to pressing societal challenges. So, for example, in future energy systems, we might have AI systems that are scheduling the charging of our electric cars to make sure that the charging coincides with the production of renewable energy and that the grid is not overloaded. In future transportation systems, we may have autonomous self-driving taxis that pick us up from our doorsteps and then connect us seamlessly with other modes of public transportation. Or in disaster management, we may have personalized apps that give us advice about how we can keep safe during a disaster. Now, in all of these settings, one key aspect is that we have many independent stakeholders that have different aims and objectives that are sometimes opposing each other. So, for example, these stakeholders might be different households that are trying to charge their electric cars at the same time, but there's not enough grid capacity to serve all of them. Or in transportation systems, there may be many passengers who want to travel at the same time, but there's a limited set of autonomous vehicles to take them. And in such settings, my research is looking at how we can incentivize these participants to behave in a certain way that maximizes the benefit to everyone. And that's sometimes called the social welfare of the system. I've engaged with policymakers on several occasions. So in 2019, I was invited to participate in Evidence Week, which is an event held at the UK Parliament. And it's about connecting parliamentarians with researchers to talk about how science and evidence from science can inform policymaking. For that event, I set up a stall in the upper waiting hall of the Houses of Parliament in London, and together with the public policy team at Southampton and a colleague, Dr. Enrico Girding, we spoke with members of Parliament and members of the House of Lords about why AI is necessary for future electric cars. Over the course of the afternoon, we spoke with 17 MPs and peers, and we gave them evidence about why an increasing uptake of electric vehicles is going to be a huge challenge for the UK energy grid. And we talked about how algorithms developed at Southampton can help address these challenges. The feedback we got from the peers and from the MPs we talked with was incredibly positive. And as a direct outcome of the event, we invited Alan Whitehead, who's the MP for Southampton Test, to talk to us at Southampton about future energy systems. And in particular, we spent over an hour discussing our visions of these future energy systems, how AI can help achieve that vision. And we talked also about the many current regulatory obstacles that are making achieving that vision a little bit difficult at the moment. Now, before I talk about the policy implications of my research, I just want to highlight that the discussions with policymakers and my engagement with them has had a huge impact on my own research as well. So throughout the discussions with policymakers at Evidence Week and in my discussions with Alan Whitehead, certain challenges, open challenges in my research work have been coming up. So for example, if we're designing AI systems that are making complex decisions and decisions that are affecting the lives of real people, then how can we make sure that these ordinary citizens can understand how the AI systems are working so that they can fully trust those decisions? Also, how can we make sure that personal data is safeguarded in these systems? And then finally, how can we make sure that the decisions made by these systems are fair as well? So for example, if we're looking at electric vehicle charging and say we're offering incentives, we're offering discounts to people for charging their car a little bit later, what if there are certain particularly rich people who don't care about these discounts and they always get priority for charging because they're willing to pay for that? So how can we make sure that these systems are making fairer decisions in these settings as well? Now, these questions have really influenced my research and moved it into a slightly different direction. And I've recently been fortunate enough to be awarded a Turing AI Acceleration Fellowship on citizen-centric AI systems. And as part of this 5-year project funded by UK Research and Innovation, I'll be looking at exactly these kinds of research questions. Now, moving to the policy implications of my research, clearly there are many relevant implications looking at the application areas that I'm interested in, such as electric vehicle charging and future mobility systems. So a bit more specifically, in electric vehicle charging, we've developed new algorithms that take into account the personal constraints and preferences of drivers, and this allows us to charge vehicles a lot more efficiently within the infrastructure limits that we have. And this can potentially delay very costly investments in the charging infrastructure and allow us to adopt electric vehicles much more quickly. Now, as part of my citizen-centric AI systems project, I'm also looking at new models of mobility, for example, car sharing and ride sharing schemes. And these have the potential to negate the need for widespread private ownership of cars, and so can lead to much greener transportation systems. And here, my models and my research can inform policymakers about how to invest money in these new models and what kind of regulation might be needed to enable these models for transportation. A little bit more broadly, AI is, of course, a central part of the UK government strategy. That is evidenced by its prominence in the UK industrial strategy, by the AI sector deal, and also the UK government is currently developing a new national AI strategy, which is going to be released later this year. And my work on citizen-centric AI systems will potentially have huge impacts on the strategy as well, about how we can safeguard data and how we can ensure that ordinary people can trust AI systems. In order to realize this impact, I've started engaging with the AI Council, which is an independent body of experts that is advising the UK government on their new national AI strategy. The public policy team at Southampton has been incredibly supportive in connecting me with policymakers and helping me on my policy journey. They were the first to connect me to Sense About Science, the charity that's organizing the Evidence Week event at Parliament. And throughout that event, they've been supporting me. In the preparation of the event, they helped me make sure I use the right language when talking to policymakers and that I hit the right points that are of interest to policymakers. During the event, they accompanied me and my colleague in the Houses of Parliament and participated in the discussions and helped us take notes so we knew who we spoke to and we could take follow-up action. And then as part of that, they also were instrumental in inviting Ellen Whitehead over to Southampton to talk to us. So they've been incredibly supportive. More recently, they've been involved in writing my bid for citizen-centric AI systems, and they've helped me ensure that I've planned in policy engagement right from the start. At one point, I needed to speak to stakeholders from government as well, and the next thing I knew, I was on a call with people from the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, BEIS, including the Office for AI and the Office for Low Emissions Vehicles, which of course are very relevant government stakeholders for my research. Currently, they are helping me organize a kickoff workshop for my project, which I'm really excited about and which is going to take place in June this year. The kickoff workshop in June is really the first of a series of events, part of a large engagement program that Public Policy Southampton have helped me devise for this project. And the idea of the kickoff workshop is really to get together with the 10 stakeholders, the industrial partners who've supported my grant, to talk about what the key challenges are that we need to address in citizen-centric AI systems. And the purpose is to make sure that my research is relevant to these stakeholders and that it eventually has real-world impact as well. But throughout my project, I will have a series of events engaging a number of stakeholders, always, of course, the 10 starting partners, but I will make sure that I engage government policymakers, the third sector, and other companies and academics as well who are interested in this topic. And Public Policy Southampton will support me on this journey throughout the 5 years of my fellowship. When the public policy team at Southampton first approached me about talking to politicians from government about my research, I wasn't quite sure what to expect. But it's been a tremendous experience. As I said, it's really shaped my future research agenda. And so for that reason, I would thoroughly recommend to all of my colleagues to engage with policymakers. It's great to get that feedback to help make your research more relevant, and that undoubtedly will improve your future grant applications. But it's also really exciting to see what impact your research could have on policy making.